Early on my channel's life, I played the first two Max Paynes for the very first time, and with me already being a Remedy fan, because of games like Alan Wake and Control, I was easily able to appreciate these two brilliant games for what they are. Fun action games with elements of creepiness that I just adore. Of course, we have to bow down to them also for being the creators of bullet time. But the first Max Payne I ever played was the third one back in the day. Even with me not having played the first two previous games, I was able to easily pick up what the game was putting down. Strictly from a story perspective, he's damaged, he's in pain, and liquid gold is the only thing that helps him soothe the pain. What I didn't know back then is how different the third installment actually is compared to the first two. Exchanging a comic book noir feel with elements of horror sprinkled in, for a more fast-paced, over-the-top action movie. It's been more than a decade since it released and since I played it, so I was curious as to how well it holds up today. So join me as I take a look at Max Payne 3. Max Payne 3 takes place 9 years after the second game. Although in the second game he manages to learn how to move on from the loss of his wife and daughter, this game completely ignores that, as he's in deep depression along with struggling with alcohol and painkillers, as evidenced by the fact that that's literally how you heal in the game, by popping pills. I like how he usually has something to say when he does find pills.
Booze, coke, pills, you could get whatever party favor you wanted on this vessel.
So old Maxie Boy is struggling. After an incident at a bar, he's forced to leave New York.
I don't know why I did it. I guess I never liked seeing girls get hit.
This guy named Raul Passos offers him a bodyguard job in São Paulo, Brazil, protecting the Branco family, consisting of three brothers, the rich one, the politician, and the party animal. The rich one's trophy wife, Fabiana, gets kidnapped under Max's protection at a nightclub by the local street gang, so he's determined to get her back. It takes him some time because he's usually hammered, but eventually he uncovers that this goes way deeper than just your old regular Sao Paulo kidnapping, as vigilante militia and special forces units get involved, with Max stuck in the middle of the whole thing, trying to figure out the truth as to what the hell is really going on. The story is very interesting and it always manages to hook you along the way. The more it unravels, the more you want to know how it's going to play out. There are some predictable things that happen and other twists and turns that you maybe not expect. But at the center of it all is Max. They do a great job with a couple of cutscenes on showing how much of a mess he is. I really love the amount of detail that Rockstar puts in their games. I think it's what really separates it from the rest of the studios. And here you got details like Max getting progressively more and more up physically as the game goes along, and you can see that. But it's also the little stuff that really get me, that really speaks volumes to the story, like what seems to be an awful night or 5 of drinking and taking pills. Then all of a sudden Passos shows up to get him to go to work, and he needs a minute to clean up. And once he does, they meet the Richie Rich Branco, and you immediately notice how wrinkly his suit is. It's because he literally just threw it on. He didn't have time to iron it or dry clean it. I would suspect that he doesn't really even care. You can tell that he's still kind of up. He just threw that bitch on. He don't care. At this moment, he has no pride, doesn't respect himself. You can tell by how he always finds a way to bash on himself any chance he gets with these inner monologues.
I deliver like a French goose and skin like red leather.
And of course, they use the best sign of having a very good mental breakdown in shaving his head, which in this case is more of a symbol of a fresh start, a new beginning, as he decides to go dry from the sauce. And of course, that brings more consequences and more mental issues and trauma, but because he's now sober, he's able to see what's really been going on. Even looking back at flashbacks and seeing things that he might have not noticed at the first time because he was completely hammered, and using this to put pieces together. One thing I think that was used also as a detail to represent all this was the neon filter. Many players, including myself, feel it gets old and annoying really quick. And maybe devs would defend it by saying, well, yeah, that's the point. How do you think Max felt? That was in his brain the whole time. But this isn't in every cutscene, and I think it's supposed to reflect how Max feels, either hungover or drunk all the time. But a part of me feels like they should have just saved it when he was super up, unless this means that he's super up all the time. In which case I get it. It's a great way to put you in Max's shoes, even more. But as a consumer, it does get annoying. Another thing people weren't super stoked about when this game came out was that they didn't like Max being outside of New York. My argument to that is there are chapters that take place in New York, so shut up. Another criticism was that Brazilians were not thrilled with the depiction of the favelas, which I can understand and respect, but looking back now, there are a few more things that aged a bit worse than that, like some of the language, and their use of women's stereotypes.
It's gonna be okay. You're doing great.
I don't know what I'm doing.
But I really enjoyed the setting. It made sense to me to get them out of New York completely. And Brazil seems like the total opposite of New York. But at the same time, I could understand the local criticism. You don't want to see your home depicted in a certain way. I understand that. But as an outsider, the favelas really felt like they were on top of you, and anyone could just come out of anywhere at any time in those levels. And they did. Another very immersive thing they did was not translate the Portuguese for you, which fans later have come out and said is actually not very good. But by not translating, this puts you once again even more in Max's shoes because you don't know what they're saying, and he doesn't know what they're saying.
Haven't you figured out I don't speak your language?
For a game that released for the 7th generation of consoles, I thought that the graphics more than held up. I played this on the Xbox Series X, and at the beginning of this particular chapter, I had to take a second because I was like, yo, am I tripping or does this look really, really good? Like the lighting, the detail, the way the rain is hitting on each little puddle. Sometimes I'd be playing newer games and feel like they look even worse than the 360 era. The water may be all chunky and gross, lighting's all up, like what the hell's going on here? Then I play this and you can see each house in the favela looks and feels different. The colors, the lighting of it looks like it's breathing off the screen, so needless to say the graphics still hold up. But there are a ton of cool environments the game puts you in, like I mentioned already, the favelas, but there's some docks and a yacht, graveyard, a giant football stadium, you're running around in its lockers. This helps keep the levels feeling fresh the whole time instead of the past games where you're inside of the same looking kind of buildings. Sam himself also went through a bit of an overhaul, as he tends to do, literally having a different face in each game. This time they use his voice actors, the late great James McCaffrey, as his model. But once he shaved his head, the only thing I could think of was Triple H.
Time to play the game!
Speaking of the game, Max Payne 3 has some of the most satisfying shooter mechanics ever in a game, thanks to the Euphoria software that allows enemies to react to the specific points of where they're being targeted, adding so much more than just a ragdoll mechanic after a kill. With awesome cinematic slow-mos, you can see the art of your work on display, slowing down the camera and even being able to continue through the slow-mo to put a few extra bullets in, which offers great moments of gore. In the face! And to be able to do this, it requires pretty precise aiming, which obviously affects the difficulty of the game, especially if you suck. So you can't just run around and be spraying in the general direction of an enemy, you actually have to hit the bastard. The cover shooting system feels like very early GTA to me, same with the lock-on system. Even the weapon wheel kind of reminded me of GTA. But the lock-on can be toggled with, you can mess around with the strength of it or just shut it off completely, which I can see a lot of people doing. I almost did it because it actually locks onto the closest enemy to you and not necessarily the one you were trying to shoot at, which can really disorient you for a split second and then, I'm dead. But what the series is known for is bullet time. Being able to jump in any direction and trigger it is super satisfying. And it makes you feel like a badass flying through the air. You're over here popping pills and popping bad guys in the face. As the special forces enemies get introduced, they take a few more bullets to take down, but they all take just one headshot if they aren't wearing any gear in their head, in which case they can take a couple more. So later in the game, headshots kind of become essential because if you shoot them in the body, they be popping back up. Sometimes when an enemy is close or when you're kind of like in the stealth mode, kind of technically, Max engages in an attack where he tosses them around, usually disarming them and leaving you open to shoot them in the face. But it's kind of triggered automatically. It's not really like a prompt that you have to press or anything. It's a little bit janky, like it doesn't feel like a real mechanic of the game. Same goes for these weird ass QuickTime events, which I would call just events because you have a lot of time to react, but it also just comes out of left field and they kind of just feel half-assed if I'm honest. Of course, Rockstars are top tier when it comes to world building, and there is stuff that you can interact with the world to kind of give a sense of what the hell's going on in this Max Payne world. You can chill and watch TV for a minute, you can play the piano. There are also a couple of random interactions that feel straight out of GTA.
Don't be afraid of the fires. You think they'll hurt you? You think they'll char your skin and char your bones? But it'll make you clean in the long run.
From the type of characters that you're interacting with to their dialogue and just how random it is, while still making sense, which is very important. There are also clues you can find that Max interacts with and parts to each golden gun to find to unlock that golden gun. What I love the most about Max Payne 3 is that you are placed in the game to do my favorite shit. Cool shit. Just straight up little kid imagination stuff. Like, and then I'm gonna jump out of a window and shoot them all in the face. And then I'm gonna slide across this thing as they shoot them all in the face. And then I'm gonna jump off the boat and shoot them all in the face. Whoops, wrong person, my bad, lady. There are a lot of cool slow-mo setups if you don't f them up. I love that they don't just throw enemies at you either. There is some design to it. Where they come out of feels very purposeful. Maybe they're hiding behind a red explosive tank, or maybe there's a guy standing in front of a giant glass window. It really feels like the game wants to give you this really cool action movie-like moments. The airport chapter towards the end is widely considered one of the best levels in the game. As you're chasing one of the bad guys, the way the music complements your every move is just brilliant. This game has a great soundtrack. And this music goes perfectly with this moment, and it's all building tension towards something. And with it being paid off at the end is what really makes it pretty legendary. I really wish that there was just more of it. I know I just said that there's a lot of them. It sounds kind of crazy, but the pace of the game to me is really what holds this game back. There are a lot of cutscenes in the game. Yeah, most of them are cool or fun, but there's just too many. And when they come in, they do so very frequently and abruptly, creating a very stop and go pace. Having a cutscene after every little section is annoying. Not to forget, these cutscenes have the stupid filter I mentioned before. Sometimes you just want a stretch of a couple sections before you get to a cutscene, but it's like you show up in an area, you clear those enemies, you move on, and there's a cutscene, setting up the next little area. After completing each area, there's a cutscene. It's a little bit much, but with everything else going on, you eventually do get used to it. I felt this game being way more linear than the first two for some reason. There's like no way you can get lost, especially with Max telling you exactly where to go and what to do. But for a game that's so linear, there's actually a lot of replayability to it with the golden gun parts that I mentioned in the clues. You also unlock 2 more difficulties that are very, very brutal if you're into that sort of stuff. Not to mention the grinds that there are to do as well. These are little challenges like getting a certain amount of headshots, killing with specific guns, that sort of thing. And there are a couple of arcade modes as well, with Score Attack, where you have to get as many points as possible, and New York Minute, which is just beating the level as fast as you can. Of course, back in the day, it had its multiplayer, which was a bit more active than it was today. I never checked it out, but let me know down in the comments if you did back in the day and what do you remember about it. Along with any other Max Payne thoughts, feel free to let them know down in the comments. And when you're down there, if you're enjoying this video so far, feel free to drop a like and consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you very much in advance. But I could see the multiplayer of Max Payne 3 being like the beta to GTA 5. In a way, with death matches and that sort of stuff. Obviously not with the freedom that GTA 5 holds, but I just keep comparing this game to GTA 5 so much. The main reason why this game is so different from the other two of the series is because Remedy wasn't a part of the development for this game. Sam Lake, who you may recognize as the face of the first Max Payne, wrote the first 2 games. Max Payne 3, however, was penned by Rockstar co-founder Dan Houser, the person behind all of the GTAs, the first Red Dead, LA Noire, and so much more. Needless to say, he's a legend in the space. Which explains so much as to why this game feels way more like a GTA game than it does a Max Payne game. I mean, look at the cover, it looks like a damn GTA loading screen. But not only that, from how the cutscenes are shot, to the gameplay, to how the characters interact with each other, to how the weapons feel, the weapon wheel, there's even a bunch of GTA Easter eggs, and especially the level of detail that Rockstar put in its games. It's that level of detail that always makes Rockstar games stand above the crowd. And what makes Max Payne 3 different from the rest of Rockstar's catalog, especially now, is that it's not a huge open world. This is a much smaller linear game. A game that no matter how different it is from the first 2 in the series, it's still praised for what it did. Amazing visuals that still hold up today, great, awesome, fun gameplay that's even better than most shooters today. And even though I felt like it strayed away a bit from what really makes the Max Payne series special, they still delivered on an awesome game anyone can enjoy today. Thanks for watching. Remember to always and forever, you do you.